Doctor. In the TARDIS. Next stop everywhere.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm with your co-host, Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS once again after a rather rough week, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But thankfully, I'm joined by, once again, my wonderful partner in time. He's back from wherever he's been hiding out in time and space on other podcasts. So everyone, please welcome back to the podcast my wonderful partner in time, my wonderful friend, and someone who has been much missed on this podcast, Jesse Jackson. How you doing, Jesse?
I am great, Charles. It is, as I was telling you before we hit record, right? I've really enjoyed the time off. I've doing a lot of healing and work's been crazy, but when word broke that Chibnall was officially leaving and Jodie was going to go, I got my spider sense went off like, why are you not talking Doctor Who? And so luckily you have been very kind and have kept an open seat. And so, man, I dinged you like, hey, what are we talking? Like, oh, we're going to talk this episode. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, yes, I am excited to be back. And, and yes, I hope that I bring a little bit of bright sunshine with a tough week for you and Lori.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And joining us also, because, we didn't just save one section of the TARDIS console for Jesse, who has a permanent reservation there. Joining us also here, once again, one of our favorite special guest companions, someone who I really enjoy talking to, especially since he's a fellow Buckeye, you guys. So welcome back to the podcast once again, John Takacs. Hi, John.
Hey,
Yay,
how you doing?
Hey, John.
How you been, guys?
Good. I am
great.
excited. I always love talking classic Who with you.
Thank you.
So yeah, this was great. I am thrilled, and this is spoilers. We have a good one to talk about.
Yes, we do. So here at episode 240, Jesse, John, and I are going to be discussing The Ark. No, not The Ark in Space. That's a different episode, which surprisingly we still have not talked about here on Next Stop Everywhere. And it's a really good one, too. That's one, it's kind of an omission as far as I'm concerned from the Tom Baker era. But this is a different one. This is from the William Hartnell era, the First Doctor era. And this is one that John threw at me, wanted to talk about because he's a big Hartnell guy. And we haven't talked Hartnell here on the podcast since, I believe, episode 201. So it's been quite a while. So, John, what was it about this story that really, got you interested in wanting to discuss it? Is it a personal favorite?
Well, this one started off as a guilty pleasure. It's one of those stories where it's almost two stories. And the whole thing that links it together is the fact that, time travel can do strange things. And here they go. They have one adventure. There's a little bit of time travel. And then guess what? Here's the same place, but a whole nother adventure now. So it's like two stories in one.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the first time that we get the TARDIS actually traveling not just to a different place in time, but to a different time in the same place. And to kind of see
just forward in time,
going ahead 700 years to kind of see what happened after they were there the first time. So this is a very unusual, especially in the Hartnell era. And I believe it's the first time this type of story had been done on Doctor Who, if I'm not mistaken. So this
Right.
should be a really interesting one to talk about. Now, but before we get going on this, Jesse, I did want to check in with you and see how things are going, because obviously you were recovering from your surgery. So
Yes.
I want to know how you're doing these days. It's been a while since we've talked with you.
Yes, it has been. And as I said, I really appreciate you keeping the seat warm.
Always,
And
always.
yeah. So yes, everything is going well. I returned back to work at the end of June. As you guys know, my day job is running a contact center for a company that does RV roadside assistance. The summer is incredibly busy, so I've been going to work and staying very busy. The surgery, I'm feeling much better, and
Great.
one of the things, as I shared on social media, the tumor that was in my stomach came back benign, and in fact,
Yay.
the doctor was very
Good.
confused. Like, it acted like it was cancerous, but it isn't. I don't know why it acted that way. So
I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the great news is, so I'm doing well, and I am, not that I'm counting, but I'm like August 24th is when I can go to full diet. I'm still on the soft foods phase of my diet, which
Okay.
basically is, nothing hard, no carbs, everything, but it is better than the first 3 weeks where you're liquid only. That was driving me crazy, right?
So
Yeah, but now that
presumably you can eat stuff like applesauce or pudding, that kind of
yeah,
thing.
and like you can even
Or
like if
bread,
you
like maybe like just bread, perhaps. Is that?
I can't take bread. They don't want any carbs,
Oh,
but I
okay.
can take the peelings off an apple. You can eat an apple.
Yeah.
You can have, like almost any cooked vegetable. And you're open to almost any meat unless specifically red meat, which can be really hard to chew. But so far,
Right.
I've had no stomach issues.
Even if it was like a chopped steak, really?
Yeah, chop steak I can do, hamburgers, and like with brisket,
Okay.
you chop it up real fine. We
Yeah.
have a food. Yeah, so I've been good. I'm down. There is a 2 in front of my weight for the first time I can remember.
Yay.
I'm supposed to be at 296 toward like at the end of August, and I'm right at that point right now, so I'm doing well.
Fantastic.
So I can, when I order a new Titan Talk T-shirt, I can fit into a 2X.
Yeah.
It's a little snug, but it fits. A 3X definitely does, and I was sporting a 5X. So, there is much less
Excellent.
of me to see. I'm feeling good.
Well, good.
So,
if I said, if you get down to that certain size, I would hook you up with a brand new Next Stop Everywhere T-shirt. I'm on record for that. Oh, and John's got his on. Yay. John
Wouldn't miss it
representing. All right. See, all the cool kids want those Next Stop Everywhere T-shirt guys. So you want to snag that on TeePublic, especially right now because they got like 35% off. So now's a good time to do that.
Yeah, I did go to work 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I had wore my 5X golf shirt and my 56-inch dress slacks, and I looked horrible. I mean, like, clothes, Jesse?
Yeah.
So, and Linda's like, okay, we need to go buy you clothes now. So, yeah.
Alfred, let's go shopping. Yes.
Exactly.
Just say you're cosplaying as the Incredible Shrinking Man.
There you go.
No, just say you're Bruce Banner after turning into the Hulk. That's what happened.
So thank you for checking. I appreciate all the good wishes and all the, I've stayed caught up with the podcast, and I know you're always giving people updates about me and sharing, and so I appreciate that. And my plan is, short of anything going, I'm here for the duration, and we're planning already. We're kind of talking about the fall, what we're going to do, and so I'm excited about getting back in the saddle.
That's great. That's great. And John, how about you? What have you been up to? Anything?
Oh, just working.
Just working
a lot. Yeah, it's just
restaurants still busy.
Food service industry right now. It's so hard up for employees.
Right.
And we're just so understaffed. Industry wide. And so, and like 2 weeks ago, I worked a 67-hour work week. But yeah, it's
that's insane, man.
Yeah, it's a lot, but thankfully we've hired a few new bodies. So
good.
That's good. And just to kind of,
because you can't do that for a long period of time. It eventually takes its toll.
Yeah. And just to share, one of the things, and then we'll get to fun talk, right? Mm-hmm. I'm having the issue finding employees because McDonald's are paying $2 or $3 more an hour than what we are, because they need people,
that's the pressure to, like, hey, step your game up.
Yeah, exactly. It is. So we're doing that now and working on it. So I appreciate you, John.
It's a price war.
Yeah. It
is.
It is. It's a lot of people, I think, are realizing that they can, they've got opportunities now, especially with the way things are. So they're taking advantage of it, and they should really.
Yeah. Are you still working remotely?
Me. I'm still working remotely at home with Lori. So we're going to be doing that for the foreseeable, especially since, oh joy, the COVID numbers keep going back up again. So my comic book store just went back to masks today. So
our office
going back up.
Went back where our office just went back where we were. I mean, for like 2 months, we were maskless, and then starting this on Monday, we made the decision that now then in public areas and in conferences, we're back in masks. I took Linda to the doctor today. She has a sinus infection. The doctor's office, you got to wear masks. It is.
Your governor got COVID.
Our governor got
COVID. I had a good laugh about that, considering he's so anti-mask.
Yes, I'm so frustrated with the vaccine's right there.
Yeah.
It's right there.
I know,
it
couldn't be more obvious to anybody with half a brain. But okay.
Well, how about this? One of the episodes in this story is actually called "The Plague."
Exactly. Well, that's one of the things I was going to bring up, because it's just in general, because this story is it's very timely.
It is,
because essentially what happens is a pandemic created by Dodo. So Dodo's cold. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I think that is one of the reasons why I really enjoyed the episode, because it did feel timely.
Yeah.
And and it felt like, wow. And I also go ahead. We'll get to more specifics, but the two stories really worked well. That was kind of nice.
Right. Yeah. So before we get started, I just want to hear
about the pacing.
Yeah. We'll hear about the pacing. I'm curious about the pacing personally, but all right. So before we get started, I just really quickly wanted to thank everybody who expressed their condolences to my wife Lori and I for this past week, because we had to put our cat Keiko to sleep. And if you know Lori and I personally, this is, especially with me, because we don't have kids, this is a tremendous deal. And it's been a very hard week for both of us, but we're trying to move on. We're trying to, cherish those memories. But I just wanted to say how appreciative I am of what everybody's sending in, just their thoughts and just support, like you, Jesse, and you, John. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I want to thank you both publicly for that. So I just want to say, if I seem a little down, a little subdued, that's probably why. But it's Doctor Who, so I can't help but be excited, because I always love talking Doctor Who. So thankfully, I've got, two other great people who love Doctor Who just as much as I do. And we're going to have a fun discussion today. So with that in mind, let's get started. So this story, The Ark, written by Paul Erickson and Leslie Scott. And this was directed by Michael Imison, the fifth serial from season 3 in 1966, starring, of course, William Hartnell as the First Doctor, Peter Purves as Stephen Taylor, and the late Jackie Lane, who just recently passed this summer, really, as Dorothea Dodo Chaplet. This is her first full story as a companion after turning up at the beginning of the previous episode. And guest cast this time, we have Inigo Jackson as Zentos, who is the guy who was essentially being the main antagonist the first time everybody, the TARDIS crew, shows up. Trying to put them on trial, trying to get them arrested, that whole thing, blaming them for the pandemic. And he was notable because he was in the movie Dr. Zhivago, so I wanted to mention that. We have Michael Sheard, who plays the character Rhos, and he's notable because he's been a lot of Doctor Who, a lot of classic Doctor Who, but also some notable George Lucas and Steven Spielberg projects, because he was Admiral Ozzel in The Empire Strikes Back, which is pretty cool. Raiders of the Lost Ark he was in, and he also played Adolf Hitler in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. When Indy gets his his father's notebook signed autographed by Adolf Hitler, thinking he gets a copy of Mein Kampf. That great scene. He also played Dr. Summers in the Doctor Who story The Mind of Evil from the Jon Pertwee era. Lawrence Scarman in Pyramids of Mars. The character Lo in The Invisible Enemy, which introduced K9, you guys. Murgrave in Castrovalva, the first story with Peter Davison. And lastly, he played the headmaster in Remembrance of the Daleks from the Sylvester McCoy era. So pretty notable Doctor Who actor, at least, a supporting actor, who's appeared throughout the various decades in the classic era. So I thought I'd mention him. Roy Spencer plays Maniac, who previously played Harris in Fury from the Deep, which I still want to talk about. And he was in the Beatles movie Help, interestingly enough. So, Jesse, you might find that interesting.
Absolutely.
Terence Baylor played Yindum. He later played, Major Barrington in the War Games, Patrick Troughton's final story. But I'm sure a lot of millennials recognize him as the Bloody Baron in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or the UK version, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So, the Bloody Baron, one of the ghosts that, swinging a sword and all that. He was also in Monty Python's Life of Brian, interestingly enough. He was also in Time Bandits, a personal cult classic favorite of mine, and Brazil, another Terry Gilliam film. Richard Beale does the voice of the Refusion, and John might recognize him because he played Bat Masterson in The Gunfighters, which we talked about here on the podcast. Also played the voice of a broadcaster in the Macra Terror, and he was the Minister of Ecology in The Green Death, where the last story with Joe Grant from the Jon Pertwee era, and he was in the movie Where Eagles Dare with Clint Eastwood, interestingly enough. So, if you're a classic movie buff, you might find that interesting. I've been watching a lot of Turner Classic lately, so that kind of stuck out for me a little bit. All right, trivia. We haven't talked trivia on this one, so John, I thought if you want, do you have any trivia you'd like to share with everyone?
There wasn't a whole lot that I found for this one. What I've got so far right now is the director was very dissatisfied with the entire serial. Didn't give any kind of information why. Then Peter Purves, he thought the Monoids were laughably unthreatening. So
I'm kind of with him on that one.
Yeah, it's just the whole mop top with the eyeball where the mouth should be, and then the only other thing I had on here was a little bit when the Doctor and Dodo are having a little exchange where she says "okay" and he says, "What did you say?" The word "okay" actually is only about 150 years old, where Dodo, the story that she came from, was set in 1572. So it's a little odd that she'd be saying something that hadn't been invented yet. So
interesting.
That's what I got for that one.
All right. Well, I've got some other trivia really quickly before we get into our discussion. So the arc was apparently the first time a female writer was credited on the show.
I saw that
But
note,
but
yes.
yeah, but Leslie Scott apparently didn't do any actual work on the scripts. At least there's no documentation that she did any of the work on the scripts, because she was married to her then husband Paul Erickson, who requested that she got a credit, but like I said, she's not documented on anything, so presumably all she did was just maybe they bantered around ideas. He wrote the script and got had the official credit, and then later insisted, well, hey, yeah, I want her name on this too. So I thought that was interesting. Now, John, you were talking about the Monoids, their costume. So the Monoids, apparently, the actors inside, if you're wondering how they did their little eye effect, what it was a ping pong ball inside their mouth. So essentially what they were probably doing is manipulating around with their tongue, I'm guessing, to represent the eye. Probably like a halved out, like a ping pong ball cut in half. So hopefully they filed those edges down, because this thing's going to be pretty sharp if you break them,
Right.
if you cut them open. And then they put like this beetle wig on top of them, which is made of yak hair. So I thought that was kind of funny. And because remember, this is the 60s, beetle wigs were like all in, it was a huge big thing, right? Because this is like the height of the Beatlemania, right? By this point, when this was filmed. And so I thought that was interesting. Now, there also apparently were, as we noticed, if you watch the story, Jackie Lane, she kind of slips in and out of her Cockney accent from various periods. So, apparently the production team were instructed by their superiors, the BBC suits, that they thought it was unacceptable for a regular character in Doctor Who to speak in anything other than, quote, BBC English, unquote, whatever that is. So presumably a very formal, posh British accent. But this rule, whatever it is, or this unofficial rule, was apparently thrown out later, only 4 stories later, when Ben Jackson, the character played by Michael Craze, boarded the TARDIS in the War Machines, who somehow got to keep his Cockney accent. So is it just because, she was a woman and Ben Jackson was a male character that he got to keep his? I don't know. It seems a little odd to me.
Yes, I agree.
But thought that was interesting. And then lastly, just want to mention that in this story, we get to see the end of the Earth. The Earth gets roasted, as the Ninth Doctor liked to say. And as it heads toward the sun at the close of the episode, The Plague, and apparently, though, the National Trust, as we found out in the End of the World, in Christopher Eccleston's era, over the billions of years that followed after that, preserved the Earth, restored it to what was deemed a classic Earth before they finally destroyed it by the expanding sun. So what the Doctor, Stephen, and Dodo witnessed apparently was not the actual end of the Earth.
Good to know,
right? So little bit of a retcon, I think, on that one.
Okay.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Jesse, you mentioned it's been a while since you watched some Doctor Who. You wanted to talk some Doctor Who, so I want to give you the chance. So what was your reactions to watching the story, I'm guessing for the first time?
Yeah, I had not seen this before. I do not remember the 2 companions. We may have had an earlier episode, because we are very timey-wimey on this podcast.
Just like the TARDIS,
Exactly.
The TARDIS doesn't go in a straight line, or, so why should we, right?
And I had done a little bit of, just kind of research before I started watching it. And so I knew that it was that we were going to go back into the future, right? Back to the future.
Right.
And so
that's catchy.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the story. I love I do think if you played a Doctor Who drinking game and said, take a shot every time the first Doctor grabs his lapels, bastard, right?
That's his move. That's his signature. That's his signature move. His signature gesture. Yeah.
Yes, my boy. Yes, my dear. So it was really fun to see. It was. I loved the interaction. I thought it was very interesting, the concept that, we're going to the same place, and now then the Doctor has become a legend because it's been that, 600-700 years, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I enjoyed the story a lot. I did not find, I'm always the one, take a drink, pacing. I thought the pacing was really strong.
Right.
I do think it served it well, because it felt like, as you guys talked about, two stories. You had part one, part two, then you go, then a second story, part one, part two. And I think it served it really well. So I really like this a lot.
Great. And John, how about you? What are your reactions to the story? I'm guessing you've seen this obviously before. So what did you make? So any thoughts during your rewatch of this?
Well, the thing that always grabs me with this story is, the show was originally supposed to be about time travel. Well, here's our time travel. Here's consequences that can happen. First off, you've got Dodo with her cold. Okay, well, guess what? She's going to infect everybody, and later on, it turns out that that kind of preempts the Monoids into becoming more intelligent and becoming the guardians of the second part of the serial. But it's just a fun story altogether, and you always get the people talking about how the costumes look back then and all that. Yeah, they're going to look goofy, but it was in 65, I believe.
66, yeah.
66, yeah. You're going to have that, but some of the acting is a little corny. But it's an all-around good story. Yeah, it's just, and like I said, it's two stories put into one serial. And it's just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I have to agree. You bring up a great point, because one of the things that I loved and noticed when I was watching this again, it's been a while since I've watched the arc. So what really struck out for me was this is some solid science fiction here, because it's a very strong science fiction premise, especially for time travel, because what we're seeing in this episode is, Dodo, who is a character from a different time, coming to a different period, and she has, obviously something that we consider to be pretty, not a big deal, obviously, the common cold. But to generations that haven't been exposed to this, and especially far into the future, that this immunity has been bred out of society, it's a big deal. And you think it's something, you would think it would be something that would happen a lot more often in Doctor Who, because you always have all characters from all these different periods going to all these other different periods, and going to different from planet to planet. You think they would be picking up things, and I don't know if the TARDIS does anything as far as whatever immunization process or inoculation process. Obviously it kind of gets into everybody's heads so that they can understand each other through the telepathic circuits. But you have to wonder, well, why don't more characters, get communicable diseases? Just by breathing the air from the periods that they go to, and spreading it to other places that they go to.
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
Oh, I was going to say, the thing with this TARDIS team too, you've got two different companions from two different times. Dodo's from 1572. Stephen is from the far future, because he was fighting. He was during the time with the Daleks and the Mechanoids. So it's like that they're completely on opposite poles with that. So he might be susceptible to the stuff that she's carrying normally.
Yeah. Well, actually, Dodo's from the 60s, because why she uses terms like fab and gear, which were popular terms back then. But she's dressed like she's from the 1600s because of the costume that she wears.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's why the doctor makes this comment about like, well, hey, have you been raiding my wardrobe?
Mm-hmm.
So
I thought that was an actually pretty good line.
not really
Yes.
sure why he has that particular outfit in his wardrobe, but okay, let's roll with it.
I don't think I want to know, but
But okay, well, maybe it was a previous companion. So let's just say maybe it was Barbara's or Susan's or whatever in a story we never got, I guess. But Dodo's from the '60s, so she's supposedly of the period. She's the contemporary companion.
yeah, I know she was introduced in the massacre, but I never really got into that story.
Right, I understand. So I just want to clarify that for everybody. But yeah,
Mhm.
so. But yeah, this is such a strong sci-fi premise, and I really dug that. And I think it's it's kind of like I said, it's a little disappointing that we don't get those kinds of consequences addressed.
Yeah, and Charles, I do agree with you. Not only the virus and that, but the whole idea of playing fun with travel. The whole time travel, that it is the same place and it is this, and you become this legend.
Yeah.
Everything. I think I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I thought so too. All right.
That part is that they didn't realize that they just didn't realize that they even went into the future. they opened up the stores like, oh, we haven't moved.
Yeah, they
exactly.
think
I thought that was really interesting.
As far as they knew, this kind of looks like the same place. So as far as we knew, and they never done anything, like I said, like just going forward in time as opposed to time and space.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is a pretty notable story, I think, for a lot of those reasons. Okay, so we have 3 topics, and there is a theme. Because hey,
good.
Jesse's back, so I had to do a theme.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
All right. So topic number 1, let's discuss the companion who came in with a cold. So obviously we're talking about Dodo because we've already been talking about Dodo. So let's talk about Dodo, and this is her first full official adventure as a companion after stowing away at the end of the massacre, the previous story. And let's also talk about the first Doctor, and let's talk about Stephen Taylor, who's a companion we don't get to talk much about. And we're talking about their arrival on the Ark, encountering the Guardians who are in charge, the humans that are in charge at this point, and meeting the Monoids, who essentially are a servant, slave type race to the Guardians. And the unfortunate pandemic that follows as a result of Dodo's cold infecting everyone, including the Monoids, interestingly enough, not just the humans. And as a result, changing that whole society, as we find out. So Jesse, I'll start with you. Since you're so eager to talk Doctor Who, I wanted to get you right into it. So
thank you, Charles.
What do you make of this first part of this story, this first half, where we have the characters kind of experiencing everything for the first time and realizing that they've really screwed up this time.
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating that. Because I'm going into this cold, don't know any of the background. I did not know that she was a stowaway, right? But I love her brashness of just leaving the TARDIS, and he's like, "What? No one said you could do that." And she's like, "What? You aren't the boss of me."
Yeah,
like I can go wherever I want to go. And I just really, that was a great introduction to me. This her aggressiveness and like. Of course, I'm traveling. Why wouldn't I go? I wanted fresh air. I did think it was Chekhov's sneeze, right? The famous. If you see a gun in the first act, you're going to have someone needs to be shot in the third. So you're like, okay, her having a cold's got to be important for some reason. You
almost kept waiting for the dun dun dun.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
and it is. This is certainly done better than when the doctor had the toothache, and and instead
In
of
the
going
gunfire.
he goes to see Doc Holliday, which, by the way, if you have not heard us discuss that, that was a fun episode to discuss, and it was great. So I really liked her right away, and Steven has a little bit of stick up his, back.
A little bit. He's got to be. He's the the male hero here. So.
Yeah. And so I really like the dynamic between the three of them, and I love her aggressiveness and her curiosity.
I'm glad you really like Dodo, because this is a companion that doesn't really get a lot of love from Who fandom.
And if you go to her the actress's IMDb page, it looks like she didn't do much after Doctor Who.
No, she kind of withdrew a little bit.
Yeah.
She was one of the, from what I read of her, she's reclusive. She was very reclusive. Okay. Didn't do a lot of appearances, and so she didn't do a lot of interviews either. So there's really not a lot on her. She's kind of an enigma in that regard, I think, a little bit.
Yeah,
and then she recently passed, so I think a lot of writers were like, well, we don't really have much on her to write about.
Yeah. So, she was very charming. I like the whole storyline of, Steven getting the cold as well, and, this virus that we go because they're from different timelines. And, and this is another, probably we'll discuss another topic, but another really nice science fiction element is the whole idea of shrinking people. That was also, I thought, a really nice little, twist in this. So right away I liked our three traveling TARDIS members, and I was locked in almost immediately.
All right, John, how about you? What are your thoughts about the Doctor and his new companion Dodo and Steven in this strange environment of the Ark?
Well, Steven seemed like he was more like the protective big brother to her.
Yeah.
He's like
he had to look out for her. Yeah.
Right. Get down from that tree. Don't touch that. Keep away from there.
When you put it that way, yes, that is perfect. Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's throughout the entire story too. He was just like very, I don't want to say overprotective, but very protective of her. Because I think by this time he's had his fair share of adventures, so he kind of knows what she might be in for.
Right.
But I love how you brought up the shrinking technology with the Guardians. And when I watched it, I was thinking to myself, okay, they just shrank this down to microscopic size. The only thing that Meliam said to him before they shrank him, he goes up to her and she says, "Bye." I was like, okay, good luck. I hope you're okay. It's just bye. And then when the guy picked him up, he just all I'm thinking is like one good sneeze or a trip, and that dude's he's gone. Mm-hmm. So it was just one of those little things you think about whenever you see like a sci-fi show or movie when they shrink someone down like that. It's like, okay, who's going to step on them? Who's going to sneeze and they go flying?
Well, I thought that same thing in The Invisible Enemy when the Doctor and Leela get shrunk down and to be injected inside, the clone of Doctor and Leela, I should say. But yeah.
But for the rest of the Doctor seemed like he was very happy with Dodo on his team. He's kind of he's almost like kind of mentoring her as well as like throughout the adventure, kind of helping like teach her along the way, and just kind of be like that grandfather figure to her.
Yeah, but, I think he probably liked it that Dodo was curious and adventurous. She she didn't want to just sit there. Be docile. She wanted to go out and explore. And it's like, hey, she had spirit, and I think the Doctor probably responded to that a little bit. So I thought it was interesting. The miniaturization as punishment was interesting, especially, but it also made sense because in order to keep their supplies down, I'm guessing that that was one of the reasons that they had this, this technology so that, you didn't have you could have all these people on the ship, but because they're so small, they won't consume as much or, whatever, drain the resources of the Ark. So it kind of made sense. And then they decided, well, yeah, we're just going to, you're a bad guy. So our punishment is we're going to shrink you down and keep you that, itty bitty for 700 years until we get there on Rhos. So have fun.
And I'm always fascinated by this arc in this thing because, they talk about that, right? Like, we won't see this, our children won't see this, maybe even our grandchildren won't see this. And the idea that how do you keep society going together, and how do you keep education going? And Battlestar Galactica, the reboot, did a good job about talking about, you're kind of stuck in your role, your cast. It was hard for you to move from something else. And I thought that was another nice twist. The idea of these, the leader knowing that we're in the middle of this long journey, that we there's no way we're going to even it's our descendants are going to see the end of this journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was actually in my notes.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting attitude. They're they're very resigned. They think very long term. It's we'll never see it. It's one of those we'll never get to space, but our children will, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was curious. So the Monoids. Now we get this backstory that supposedly they're this peaceful breed of alien who came to Earth after their planet was dying. And they helped the human race supposedly escape Earth. And they also they also taught humans the miniaturization technology. And apparently to be rewarded for all that, they end up being forced into servitude by the humans because, let's face it, humans suck. So, no surprise to anyone who's been paying attention recently. So, as a result, these monoids, they don't speak, but they communicate apparently through sign language, which I thought was interesting. That's how they're able to express themselves and vocalize, quote unquote. So guys, what did you make of the monoids, especially being introduced as a servile race? Serving humanity, and then what did you think of the Guardians, the humans' treatment of them as a species? Any thoughts?
Well, I don't think there was any kind of negativity towards them. They were servants of the Guardians, but there was never. They were always very nice to them. They were always. There was never any kind of violent intentions towards them. Mm-hmm. Even the Monoids had the cases of their own people that were miniaturized. Yeah. So it was, they wanted to live together, but it seems like it
was intended as a partnership, but then because humans got a human, it turned into something less fair, less equal.
They remind me of let's say classic series Ood.
Yeah, that's a great comparison, actually. I like that.
That's a really good comparison.
John, I think you're very spot on that one.
Yeah, one of the things that confused me, right, is how do you help humans build this technology if you're only doing sign language? And I'm in the middle of reading Andy Weir's Hail Mary, his latest book, the same guy who did The Martian. And there is a scene where the main hero meets an extraterrestrial, and how they communicate. They're going, and if you've read The Martian, you know that he's very detailed and the science fits when he writes a novel. And so I'm really enjoying the novels. But
he's a hard SF guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. But I'm like, how did they teach them and how did they help them? But I understand that that was a plot device so that in the future they are talking, they are different, and tables have turned. So I understand why they did that.
Like a way to contrast the periods. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But really an interesting, and I think you got to accept the fact that, Classic Who is going to be hit and miss on, monsters and special effects, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, if that's what's stopping you from enjoying Classic Who, then okay, move on.
It's
go
part
watch,
of the charm.
Yeah, go watch another Matt Smith episode for the 80th time, and I say that with love in my heart. Just the reality is, that isn't the reason to not enjoy Classic Who at all. I mean, they are a very different type of show, but it is the building blocks of modern Who. So, and that's why I love that we go back and talk Classic Who.
Right.
I thought this was an interesting race. I had read the same thing about the ping pongs, and so I was kind of watching that, like, okay, like, I didn't think about cutting it in half. I'm like, okay, don't swallow that. You're going to choke. Oh, thank you, Charles. I was looking for, the only thing I could find was like a apple, thing I was trying. I wanted to do that.
Bottle cap.
Yeah, very perfect. I'm like, don't choke on that. And I was like, okay, they're going to have to breathe through their nose. It was a very fun point. So yeah, good stuff.
For anybody wondering what I was doing, I put a bottle cap in my mouth, kind of like a monoid, the actor playing the monoid. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So, let's see. So obviously, the monoids get laid out with the fever. The virus spreads, and the doctor, essentially what happens is Zentos, the fresh maker, overhears the doctor and, talking to Steven and Dodo going like, okay, I think we just totally infected all these people with Dodo's cold and it's not looking good. So he overhears that and he's like, okay, so he gets, he starts to be, trying to, I don't know, show off his position or whatever, his authority. So he's like, these intruders into our ark have now infected all of us, and they must be arrested. And so I don't know what his point was. Well, okay, we want them to pay. I get that, but what are you going to do about the infection? He wasn't really focused on that at all. As far as like, oh, how are we going to come up with this? Well, just trust our scientists. They'll figure it out. We want to, we want justice for what they have done to us and possibly ending our society. So they get taken away, but ultimately they end up, thankfully, to through the help of the commander who was originally infected, until Zentos takes over for him. And the commander's daughter, they kind of help persuade people to let the doctor try to come up with an antidote. And so he develops this antidote, recreates this cold vaccine, presumably from memory somehow. And this gets administered. Everybody gets recovers. Thankfully, there was apparently like a few monoids died, maybe a few humans perhaps, but the main people in charge, they're brought back, and all seems well, and everybody, leaves on a really strangely, oddly positive note. They're like, hey, thanks for infecting us, see you later. Hope we, take care. As the doctor, one of the monoids drives the doctor and his companions back to the TARDIS. So, what did you think of it? That particular resolution before they dematerialized? Did you think they wrapped that up a little too quickly, or Was it something that it made sense, or I don't know? What was everybody's reactions, I guess, to that? Jesse, I'll start. What do you think about that? Or John, do you
Okay.
want to start?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll go. I liked seeing if I have any criticisms and I realize it's because the show is still finding itself,
Yeah.
the Doctor can be very passive at time. This first Doctor, right?
Yeah.
He's, my dear, and doing this. So seeing him come up with the cure and taking a lead in that was really good for me to see. Yes, maybe it wrapped up a little bit quickly,
Yeah.
but I was okay with that, and I like the idea that we were really worried about Steven, and then the fever broke and he was just resting.
Yeah.
So and I also we often don't see the Doctor make mistakes, and in this case he okay, I've cured this, I'm moving on.
Yep.
You're like, oh, wait a minute, Delta variant, like everything that's going on right now, fall, plans, Delta variant, right?
We're in simpatico on this one. This is what I was thinking as well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I guess that's a great segue to our second topic. Unless anybody else has anything else you want to talk about the first topic. So second topic is, let's see, what I'll call Dr. Dodo Steven slaves, because, like I said, they get the Monoid drives everybody back to the TARDIS in a little golf cart, and they dematerialize and they rematerialize. They think, okay, where are we now? Understandable, because that's the whole MO of the show, right? Where are we now? Turns out they're in the exact same place, only 700 years in the future. So they kind of get to see what happened, even though to them it's only been a few moments since they left. But obviously time has passed, and it's a completely different society now. As it turns out, we find out that originally there was a statue that was being constructed of Homo sapiens, and suddenly now there's like a statue with a monoid head on top, and the monoids are now in charge. Like the script has completely flipped, and the race, the monoids, who were originally the servants, are now the masters, and the humans, in a nice little bit of karma, are now the slaves.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. So looking at you, Planet of the Apes, right? So,
I thought the exact same thing, right?
Right, a little bit. So, and we get to see that, okay, as we find out, the Doctor, he made that cold vaccine, but didn't really take into account that, like Jesse said, there is a little bit of a Delta variant situation going on where the virus mutated. And as a result, the Monoids took advantage of that and used that, the breakdown in their the Guardians' supremacy, and took over themselves and developed themselves. So John, I'll start with you on this one. What did you make of this next, the 700 years later segment in episodes 3 and 4?
Yeah, it was the classic switch. I mean, it just it would have been a lot different if the story had just been dragged out in the first two episodes to make it like a four episode story with just that.
Yeah.
But it's one of those ones. It's where you're like, oh, I see what happened, and it just kind of catches you off guard for a second, because you see the heat gun attack, or the monoid. You don't see it; it's a monoid right then and there. You just see the gun.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, they're in charge now. I see what you did there. So it's just
it wasn't an immediate reveal. It was just, like you said,
right.
You see the gun firing, and you assume that a human fired it, right?
Exactly. And then when you see the monoids are now the masters, and it's the whole role reversal. It's like, okay, this could get interesting, which
Right.
it does.
Right.
Yeah. First off, I thought it was interesting in the first episode where I believe where one of the members of the Ark is explaining like, oh, and to entertain ourselves, we're building the statue. I'm like, okay, that's not very entertaining, right? Like that
Right.
seems like, did you guys lose, your MP3s, your CDs?
And they're building the statue with like ancient tools.
Right, yeah.
Like
because,
they're constructing the pyramids in Egypt almost,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Like, just, let me just chip away with this rock.
Yeah, and that was
Well, we don't know what happened to society. It's 10 million years down the road. Maybe they lost some tech along the way, but which is why, they had to have the Monoids build their ship for them.
But I did like the reveal of the statue and what's going on, and
Because it's obviously a big metaphor, that statue.
exactly, yeah, that like, oh, and you're right, we've done a flip. All of a sudden, we find out that because of the Doctor, ripples, time can be rewritten, I guess, depending on what's going on. And so I thought that was a really nice twist. And you're right. When you see the kind of spear-looking ray gun, which is not a bad-looking gun. I mean, I thought that was...
Yeah.
Wait a minute. And then they're talking. You're like, wow, okay, we are not in the original Ark anymore. Instead of saying...
Yeah. Yeah. So were you surprised by that twist, Jesse, watching it for the first time?
I was.
You didn't see that coming at all?
No. All I had known is that they end up going to the same place 700 years in the future. That's all I had known. So I did not know the story about the cold. I did not know how the vaccine, ended up not totally taking care of the variant. And I thought that was a really nice, and it's interesting, John, you mentioned that it isn't like the humans were cruel to them, but it just changed, I guess they were being a slave is being a slave. And so they are, now then we have the upper hand, and we're going to act accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, yeah.
I love how they put them all in a kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. We locked them in the kitchen, and, we can't get out. And that's where they end up sending the Doctor and his companions. Like, oh, yeah, you're going to, help prepare our meals now. But
I love the
notice the
futuristic
Monoids
meals,
have
how
also...
they just...
Go ahead.
They just drop a pill in water and it turns into chicken legs and wings.
Right.
Like,
Instant
oh,
growth.
I love it.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that 50s, 60s version of sci-fi where you all you have to do is add a drop of water and boom, you have like a pizza or something. Yeah. So, but the Monoids, since taking charge, they actually develop, they evolve, they come up, they invent these voice synthesizers that they're able to use to actually communicate, not just, through sign language. They're actually able to communicate audibly. And they apparently also developed like a ranking system, because you notice they all have, in this second segment, they have, collars, and, they're apparently the way that their hierarchy goes is like, okay, number one is number one, like the number one is the guy in charge, and number 2, 3, 4 down the road, right? So presumably the only way you get promoted is if like somebody dies and and there's a vacancy, and I don't know if they campaign to move up or what. I don't know how that works. We never get into that. But interestingly, it turns out that there is a bit of a they've kind of picked up something unfortunate from the humans in that they all don't think the same. And as we find out in the story, there's a little bit of political backstabbing going on. when it comes to this plan to go to the planet Rhesus. So I thought that was interesting.
Between number 4?
Right, yeah. So for one of the things, the guy in charge, number 1, is, he wants to make sure that the world is apparently only populated by monoids. So he's a bit of a racist, it turns out. He tells the humans, okay, we're all going to live on this new planet. It's all going to be good. Even though, hey, you're going to be our servants, but, that's life. But you're going to be on the planet. But secretly, his agenda is, no, I don't want humans at all, just monoids. And, sorry about your luck. He's promising one thing, the reality is another. And it turns out some of the other members of the monoids aren't really down with that. So they kind of have like civil war, like the Civil War memes. But, so it kind of fractures their society a little bit. So kind of picked up something from the humans, unfortunately for them, as it turns out. So what did everybody make of that, I guess? Any thoughts about that? Or is that
I think you hit it right on the head there. It's I love the fact that later on when this happens, they can speak, and you can hear it in number 1's voice. He kind of just by the way he talks, you can tell that he's not in it for monoids and humans living like co-op. They're just he wants it all for himself. And just the scheming, the conniving, you can see how the human element has kind of like rubbed off on him. Yeah. Over all those hundreds of years.
Yeah, they picked up a little too much from the humans. Yeah. Right.
Because as you said it there earlier in the podcast, right? Humans, because they're horrible, right? So we're turnabout's fair play, right? So we're doing this. And while, yes, it would be nice if everything was, rosy and we're all holding hands singing Kumbaya, but it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not all, drinking Coke together and, all happy-go-lucky. Yeah, unfortunately, as it turns out. So any other thoughts about, this 700-year later period before we get to Rhesus? Anybody has any other thoughts about that we overlooked?
Well, I think with when you were talking about Zentos earlier, he started off as like once the commander was sick, he wanted to be the loudest voice in the room. Yeah, and he wanted to right away try them, convict them, eject them into space, and then as soon as the doctor finds the cure and starts curing both monoids and humans, he was actually really cool to him. Yeah, which was it was a complete turnaround. I thought he was just going to be like that complete jerk throughout the entire series of the episode. Yeah. But then at the very end, he thanks him. He's very nice to him. It was just that I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I didn't either because he seemed like he would be that schemer character who's like, okay, the commander's sick. Now's my chance to take charge and be the guy. Yeah, but that doesn't happen.
No, and in fact, the hero, the doctor kind of gets a hero,
like I said, everybody celebrates when they leave. Like, hey, yay, you almost killed us, but take care, okay, bye-bye.
Let's have a ticker tape parade for you.
Right.
Exactly.
Give him a happy send-off. All right. So let's move on then. Third and final topic. Third topic is our kind of refusion. So we had the companion who came in with a cold, Dr. Dodo Stephen's slaves, and our kind of refusion. Anyone want to take a guess on the theme for our topics?
So when I originally read this, I thought of, like John le Carre novels or something, right? Like The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, those other Tinker Spy, so that's what I originally thought.
Well, I'd say you're on the money, Jesse, because yes, it was a John le Carre.
Yes.
Yes, so that's what I was riffing on. So yes, spy
It
novelist
sounds
John
so familiar,
Le
but I
Carre.
couldn't figure it out.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's what I was going with there a little bit.
Very good.
So yeah, instead of like the spy who came in with a cold,
Yep.
or Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, or our kind of refusal, or excuse me, our kind of patriot. That's the story, I believe.
Perfect.
So the novels by John Le Carre. All right, so that's what I was going with. Good, well done, sir. You're very well read today. Apparently,
Yes.
you're so literary. All right. All right. So third topic here. Let's talk about. Okay, we talked about 700 years later before they get to Refusius too. So let's talk about once they get there, and we find out that apparently number one and his side, political side, have apparently decided, okay, we're going to leave the humans on the ship, on the Ark, and we're going to blow it up real good by using a bomb that's hidden away inside the Monoid statue. So, that great statue that we built and finished off and took over, we're going to blow that up because the humans will never guess it's in there. And so I want to get everybody's thoughts on what happens. And then also once they get to Refusius, they get help from one of the Refusians, who, as it turns out, is apparently invisible. And because of the solar flares somehow affecting their genetic code, presumably, and kind of mutating them a little bit. So Jesse, I'll start with you on this one. What did you make of once we got to Refusius and the big third act heading into the conclusion of the story?
So I think it was kind of interesting, right, that we had in the first half a medical problem. We're trying to fix this. Oh, the problem solved. Then it comes back. No, it wasn't really solved. But now then all of a sudden we've come up with this, a changing, kind of a switcheroo where now this new alien race has an upper hand and wants to get rid of humans. And so you've got to figure out, what do we do? I thought the bomb, that was a nice kind of thought.
Ticking clock, really. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I thought that was it was a nice change of pace that and I'm going to quote John, right? He said if they had tried to stretch this out for all 4 episodes, and sometimes they have to, right? They do that. You go, we could have. But because of the 2 different storylines, you got 2 different adventures with this first Doctor and these 2 companions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I like that. I like that a lot.
So did you think there was enough plot then in this one?
I did.
Yeah.
I felt like it was. Yeah, I did. I was, and like I said,
to justify the 4-parter. Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, one of the things that was nice is in my case, I watched the first 2, then did something else, and then like a couple of days later watched the next 2. And it worked perfectly for me because
that's what I do.
Yeah. It was so it was just really cool to see. Yeah, I like that.
All right. And John, how about you? What did you make of this build up to our finale?
Well, the third act with this story is just, I love it to bits because you finally get to where you're supposed to be going.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love an invisible alien? It just makes it so much easier for
and he's
production
friendly,
values.
apparently. He's a really cool guy.
You finally get to actually see the Monoids in action when they're fighting each other.
Yeah.
The whole ticking clock. It's just I absolutely can't. I just love it. It's one of those things where you finally get the payoff.
Yeah.
And the way the Refusians at the end, or the Refusian, he tells them, okay, look, you can stay here on one condition. You have to become friends with the Monoids. You have to accept them. They have to accept you. You have to live peacefully together. But because I think the humans and the Monoids, they're going to do it anyway, probably out of fear, because these Refusians, they're pretty powerful.
Right.
And he was able to lift that huge statue and just chuck it out the airlock without even like panting. But yeah, it was just I don't know if you've ever seen some of the old documentaries on the classic series. Anytime they have something with the Hartnell era, you'll always see a little bit of that monoid battle. You'll see the one monoid jump in, shoot his flamethrower or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see that whole battle take place. And then, of course, you get the human collaborator who thinks he's going to be saved. And he runs out. He says, I'm here. And it's just, he gets cut down right then and there. So It's like, hey, there's your just desserts right there.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That was nice.
Yeah, there was a nice little message there, like, hey, don't collaborate with the enemy, okay?
Right?
Because in Doctor Who, you're going to pay for it, definitely. So
yeah, you want to go like I remember. You'll go like, have you ever watched the show? Like The Apprentice, like they'll talk about you'll see someone like back when it was the Apprentice, you'd go, did you never watch the show before you were on there? I mean, this is not a surprise.
No.
So like, have you never watched Doctor Who? Of course they couldn't, but yeah, this trick never works where, I'm going to portray the human race because I'm sure this is going to work out fine for me.
Yeah.
Well,
and a buddy of mine, he's years ago, he's like, well, what if the guy that was in prison that was shrunk down, what if he came back and did the same thing just to kind of save the day? I'm like,
yeah,
maybe not, but.
Well, that was one thing I was wondering because, okay, they bring this back. If they bring this guy, restore his size 700 years later, he didn't really they didn't do anything to alter his behavior apart from giving him a 700-year timeout as a miniaturized version of himself.
Just for making mistakes.
So why wouldn't why would he be any different? I guess is my question.
Yeah. No, I think that's an excellent question because it isn't like we're doing.
All you did was shrink him. That's it. He's not going to be any different.
Subliminal messages, right? Like, okay, in this box we have this.
Yeah. You
are now going to be a good person. You are now going to be a good person. They aren't doing that. No. So, yeah, like in fact, I would be even more cranky. The argument that, not to get political, right? But you go to jail, there isn't rehabilitation. It's just now then you've learned how to be a better criminal. Yeah. So this is he's not going to change. Absolutely.
No, I mean as far as we know, they didn't do anything like old Stanley Kubrick Clockwork Orange, where it's strapping their eyes open and forcing them to watch, you will be good, like Jesse was saying. So yeah, they didn't. As far as we know, they didn't do any of that. All right, go ahead.
We should post this video.
Yeah.
Normally we're an audio podcast, but this has been really. You have been great, Charles, at entertaining us this time.
I try. All right, I try to keep you guys entertained. So especially when you get to these, less interesting topics. All right. But one of the things I thought was interesting was the refusions, because one of the things we're told is that the refusions are like, okay, basically we don't want any a-holes on our planet. We've developed this really peaceful society. We knew the Ark was coming, so we built a place for it. But we don't want you guys acting like dicks. We don't want you being jerks. And, when the Doctor and, like the refusion, the one that the Doctor and his companions meet is very friendly. Like I said, he's very helpful. He's like, hey, you guys seem okay, but what about these other guys? What about the Monoids and all this? And Dodo, I think, kind of explains to them that, yeah, they've got some problems. They have to work out, and they need to get on the same page. So the refusion is kind of saying, okay, well, you guys can be here, but you're going to have to behave yourselves. And like John was saying, they actually force them, say, hey, look, you got to be, if you're going to be here, you have to make peace with each other. So I thought it was a really nice message, I think, to after all this conflict, and apparently, these two races really not like one being acting superior to the other until the script gets flipped. that they're forced now to treat each other as equals by a third party because they couldn't do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this reminded me just a little bit of, once again, humans are arrogant, right? Hey, we're going to this new planet. No, you just should be thrilled that we're coming. They may not have an open door immigration policy at this new planet, right?
No, I'm sure
but
not.
A little bit of the Star Trek, right? With the with the Klingons and them fighting and the
Organians.
Yes, right. That have this. So this is kind of like
I'm showing my Trek cred here. Yeah.
Yes, you
Organians.
are. We're gonna, hey, you guys need to play nice with each other, or TikTok, the game is locked. So that was a nice.
You're trying really hard to make me want to do a Star Trek podcast, aren't you, Jesse? I'm trying really hard to make that happen. All right. Any other thoughts about this episode? This story that didn't cover, because obviously they work it out and they stop the bomb. Steven kind of stages this little bit of a rebellion with the humans aboard the Ark, getting out of the kitchen and whatnot, and things get taken care of rather neatly. Now that their fusions are like, look, you guys are going to have to play nice in our backyard, okay?
Right.
And I thought it was cool that in this series, that during this style,
the serial,
you ended you end with a cliffhanger.
Right. Yeah, for
like
the next serial. Yeah.
That was kind of cool.
So what did you make of that cliffhanger? Because what happens is it sets up the Celestial Toy Maker, the next story, where they go back to the TARDIS and suddenly the Doctor, like, he coughs or whatever, sneezes, and then all of a sudden he disappears. But his voice is still there. He becomes invisible. And understandably, Dodo and Steven are like, well, was it something that the Refusions did? Because, well, hey, we just met some invisible people, so maybe it was that. And the Doctor's like, no, it's some form of attack. And that's the cliffhanger. So what'd you make of that?
I thought it was a pretty good cliffhanger. I was like, I've got too much on my plate right now to just go, but I was almost tempted to, with BritBox, you can just go the next episode and like, well, maybe I'll just watch a little bit. But I was like, no, I've got Lower Decks to watch. I hadn't seen What If yet, and I'd only gone through 2 of the Titan episodes. So I'm like, no, just hold on, Jesse. Let's do this other stuff.
Well, I will give you a heads up that unfortunately the Celestial Toy Maker does not exist in video form.
Oh, okay.
But there is audio. And in fact, I'm actually listening to the CD, the actual audio recording right now in my car. So
interesting.
So I know what happens next.
Ah, very nice. Cool.
But so if we ever want to cover that story, we could cover it kind of like a Big Finish audio. We could do the audio version of it. But as hopefully, I think a lot of fans have wanted to see that one animated, but they haven't done that yet. So, but the audio exists. So just a little heads up there if you're looking for it.
Okay.
Yeah, you can find that online easily.
Yeah, John, what did you make of that cliffhanger?
I love the cliffhangers. It's being a classic Doctor Who guy. It's like we always had the cliffhangers.
Yeah.
Every so often, you would even get the Edward De Silva narration in there as well. But not now with the cliffhangers, but in different parts.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of hooked you in for the next week's episode.
Yeah, keep you watching.
And,
what a crazy idea. Like, hey, you saw what happened this week. Well, we want you to come back next week, so we have to give you that hook. And so, yeah, it's a pretty good cliffhanger, right? Invisible Doctor. What happens next?
It's up there with the Macra Claw.
Yeah.
The Dalek Plunger. I mean, it reels you in.
Well, and Hartnell really sells it too. Some form of attack. So you guys are like, what's attacking him? Well, I have to know. All right.
And at the end of the Celestial Toy Maker, there's a cliffhanger for the gunfighters.
That's right.
Which is that's awesome. I love that.
See, This is why classic Doctor Who rocks, you guys. Just pointing that out.
Yes, indeed.
All right. So any other thoughts about the story that we missed? Okay.
I don't have any.
Very, very underrated classic.
I think so. It's very interesting. And like I said, a lot of strong sci-fi in this story,
Yes.
which I really appreciated. All right. Anybody got any favorite quotes they want to share with the class?
I had one, and I just really love this line. There, in modern Who, there are a lot of great lines that carry greater resonance to me, but I love that you must travel with understanding as well as hope. That is just a wonderful line. I really, really like that, and I think that's good advice, period. So that was the only one I had, but
That's a good one.
I love that line.
All right. John, how about you? Any quotes you want to share?
I love how the Doctor says to Dodo, he says, now once this crisis is over, I'm going to teach you to speak English.
Yeah, it's like maybe he was the guy behind the BBC English role, apparently. All right. That was a good one. Let's see. I like the Doctor and Dodo. They actually the Doctor and Dodo get a lot of good scenes in this, especially in the first episode, I think. That the Doctor's talking to her and says, "Now, I suggest we take a last look around and we'll get you off to bed." And Dodo replies, "Oh, you're not going to send me home, are you?" The Doctor replies, "Home? Oh, what an idea. I couldn't send you home even if I wanted to."
Yes.
Dodo replies, "Oh, that's all right then. I think I'm beginning to enjoy this space travel or whatever it is."
Really good line.
That was good. And then I thought when another one with the Doctor and Dodo that where it looks like they're never going to get back to the TARDIS. I think this is kind of like in the episode 4 beginning maybe or something, or the end of episode 3. I think it was the end of episode 3.
After the lander is destroyed?
Yeah. So Dodo's like, "What do we do now?" And the Doctor replies, "Nothing, my dear. We shall have to just wait until the next party lands." And Dodo replies to that, But what if they don't come? What if they decide to find another planet?" And the Doctor says to that, "Well, in that case, we shall just have to stay here." Meaning, I guess we're stuck, right?
Yep.
Dun, dun, dun. Yes.
And Dodo
Just
should have been
very
like,
carefree.
"What? What do you mean that's it? We have to just wait and hope?" Okay. So I thought that was good. All right. So what's everybody's ratings? I'm kind of curious about this one. So John, I'll start with you first on this. What's your rating, sir?
Well, like I said, this has always been it started off as a guilty pleasure. Now I just love this episode to death. I'm going to give it 9 out of 10 big monoid statues.
Ooh, okay. That's good. That's good. So you're pretty strong coming from John. Jesse, how about you?
So I like this one a lot too. I'm not quite there. I'm 8.5 unused handkerchiefs.
Ooh. All
Because
right.
the Doctor says, "Why don't you, use your handkerchief?" Which is
Yes. Like, yeah, she's like, he's all like, "Do you have a handkerchief?" And she goes, "Yeah." And the Doctor's like, "Yeah, use it. What are you doing?"
yes.
That's
This
great.
was before we started sneezing on our elbows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, kind of interesting that hardly anybody was wearing masks during that outbreak on the Ark, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, like you keep looking around and here in 2021 watching this going like, yeah, you should be wearing a mask right now.
Exactly,
What are you doing?
yeah.
What are you doing? Social distance, social distance. I'm going to give it, I like this one too. I'm going to give this one an 8.5. I'll go with, let's see, I'll go with 8.5 invisible refusions.
There you
Ooh,
go.
good. Very
So
nice.
I like that. All right.
Yeah.
So this is a pretty solid story. Like I said, some great sci-fi in this one. Some sci-fi that I wish, especially ramifications, consequences, that I think we should be seeing more of in this story.
Yeah, you don't see it too much.
Yeah, I did. I really liked it, and it was a good episode to come back into. After I'd taken my little sabbatical, it was really fun to get back into, and so I really like it. And the first Doctor, is just such an interesting Doctor to watch and see how he interacts, and as the show's trying to find its way. So this is very
educational, really.
It is, and it's one of my favorite podcasts is the History of Rock and Roll in 500 Songs.
Yeah,
and this is a great podcast that the guy does, and he is going through the history of rock and roll, and he takes one song and talks about everything that's going, and it is, we kind of do this as you see Doctor Who building on its own mythology and how to do and stretching different creative muscles. So this was a fun episode. Good choice, sir.
Yep. Good job, John. Yep. All right. So reverse the polarity. Well, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into the whole thing because we're running a little long. But I did want to recommend, if you like the arc, and I hope you did, you should check out, this is something I kind of mentioned earlier in this episode, The End of the World. I thought was my modern era comparison to this. So obviously that was the second episode from Series 1 in 2005, written by Russell T. Davies. So like the second episode ever of New Who, where the Ninth Doctor takes Rhos 5 billion years into her future, arriving on Platform 1, which is the space station around Earth, and they arrive in time for this party celebrating, yes, the final destruction of long-abandoned Earth by the expansion of the sun. So this is where the Earth really gets roasted, as opposed to the arc. So that's the main connection here. But it's a great episode. It introduces Lady Cassandra, and we get to see, we saw Doctor Who in the modern period. The previous episode of Rhos, but now we get to see what New Who thinks is how they're approaching the future, and especially the far future in this story. And it was for fans of classic era, this was a big eye opener to what New Who could become. So I definitely recommend it. I think it's also it's a personal favorite of mine, personally. All right, like I said. So listener feedback. We do have some feedback. We have Holly Mack writing in about the arc, so I thought I'd share that really quickly. So Holly says, "Hello all." Well, hello, Holly. I wanted to say this is the first time that I've watched the arc, and I enjoyed it. All right, just like Jesse.
Yay!
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 Loved Dodo. So I think Dodo, see, the more people learn about her, the more they might like her and talk about her, hopefully. So we encourage that here, the Next Stop Everywhere. Very interesting take on a futuristic arc and traveling to a new planet that is very close to Earth for everyone to survive. Good news, common cold is gone. Bad news, none of the ship's crew has the ability to fight it off. Whoops. That was a twist I didn't see coming at all, but it does make sense. Yeah, especially in 2021, right? Not too surprised either that the Monoids later become the masters of the ship and the inevitable plotting of the other Monoids to cast suspicions on each other. Oh, talked about that. All in all, a very good story. Of course, the ending sets up the Celestial Toymaker, which is sadly lost, but like I said, it still exists in audio. I tracked mine down on Amazon if you're curious. So it's out there. You can find it, and maybe hopefully one of these days we'll talk about it here on Next Stop Everywhere. Somebody wants to. I'm all for it. May have to dig out the audiobook version I have later on. She probably has her copy, apparently. Hopefully later that one will get animated. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. So thanks, Holly.
Thank you so much, Holly. Hey, Charles, I've been out of the loop. Remind me that if someone wants to give us feedback, how can they?
Well, we've been doing this for now 7 years. We celebrated our 7th anniversary last episode with Holly. So if you don't know by now, I'm definitely going to encourage you to check us out write to us really at nextstopeverywheresmg@gmail.com. That's nextstopeverywheresmg for Southgate Media Group @gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at nextstopsmg on Twitter. Facebook, of course, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, or Instagram at Next Stop Everywhere podcast. And Jesse, when you're not here kind of slumming it with yours truly and John, Where can we find you out there in the interwebs?
So you can hear me talking music, and I am hitting 6 years in September on Set Listing Bruce.
Congratulations!
Wow.
Yes. So we are. I've consistently been doing Set Listing Bruce, and we've got some really fun episodes. I hope you guys will check that out. And then also on Southgate Media, the How Many podcast, which is just an excuse for me and 3 or 4 of my friends to get together and debate pop culture topics. And I have, if you go to our Patreon page, the Southgate Media, I just did a Ted Lasso episode.
Yeah.
Yes, I did a Ted Lasso episode that Biscuits with the Boss, where we talked the first 3 episodes of Ted Lasso. And
I've been waiting for you to do a Ted Lasso podcast because I know how much you love that show.
Yeah. And I just medically, I'm like, I just can't do one every week. So I got Tom and David said, well, let's just do it for Patreon. And so we're going to do it like 3 episodes at a time, just to kind of catch them all
little
together.
blocks. Yeah, that's a good idea.
And we should talk about doing a Star Trek episode for Patreon, you and me, Charles.
I have considered this possibility. I'll just put it out there.
Very nice.
I am open to that idea.
Yeah,
So
we should talk about that.
I'll just put that out there. All right. So, John, how about you?
So, John, when you're – I'm sorry. You can tell we're rusty. Continue, Charles.
That's okay. That's okay. Hey, anytime you're ready to come back and drive this thing, let me know. I'm good.
Yeah. So I was going to say, when you're not building models, John, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on Facebook, John Takacs, Instagram, john.takacs.1138. Star Wars fans should know what that is.
Yeah.
I mainly post pictures of the current models and miniatures that I'm working on. And, of course, the Ohio Type 40, a little Doctor Who group that I've got here. We're one of the 4 largest Doctor Who groups in the Buckeye State. Yeah. And my main project right now is my YouTube page, Out of This World Models and Minis. Actually just celebrated my first year. I'm really surprised I was able to go a full year. So it's 1 year, 23 videos, one of which here. I know this is audio, but got the.
Oh wow!
Oh, nice.
Now is that from the Daleks Master Plan?
Evil of the Daleks.
Evil of the Daleks. Okay, I knew it was somewhere in that period. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, this is my very first ever resin model kit that I printed off.
Is that the Dalek Emperor?
Painted. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's
nice. He's that
Here, John, hold that up. I can take a little screenshot there.
I was going to say, we should do that screenshot.
Right. Got a screenshot. All right, I got a print. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, thanks.
Excellent.
So he's up there. I mean, for the Doctor Who fans, I got the Emperor Dalek here. I've got the K9 build. You guys were talking about Star Trek recently, so I'm right in the middle of the shuttlecraft Galileo right now.
Oh, that's
sweet. That's a nice big model kit. So
that sounds so much fun.
Yep, that's my next build that I'm almost finished with.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so come and check it out.
So you can have your own little Galileo 7 story.
Do the whole thing.
Nice. That's cool. So, hey, everybody support John. Go to Ohio Type 40 and go check out his YouTube page, his YouTube videos. And, that's awesome, John. That's pretty sweet. Thanks. Congratulations, sir.
Well, Charles.
Yes.
Isn't there a couple of places where they can hear your fine work? And the reason why your lovely bride will no, you can't do another Star Trek podcast. You can't do a Star Trek podcast. But we're just going to do it as a Patreon. It won't be something, everything. But yes.
I've missed those adorably cheesy setups of yours, Jesse. You wouldn't believe. All right. As for me, of course, at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram. Would love it if you liked and followed me there. Or Facebook, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. Yes, I know Jesse missed that. So
I did.
That sound effect. Where, damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here at Next Stop Everywhere, Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, Big Finish, audios, and more. all kinds of comic book sci-fi news and other podcasts for Southgate Media, including, Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, where DJ Nick and I just recently reopened Titans Tower after a year, and we're back for Titans Season 3. We got all kinds of new spiffy, we got new logos, and we got a new T-shirt for everybody. If you want to support the show and do a new Titan Talk, the Titans podcast T-shirt, you can score one of those. And we got a new episode up just today where we review the first 3 episodes of Titans Season 3. So had a lot of fun with that. It's a bit long, 2 hours, 40 minutes, but we have 3 episodes to cover, and we had a lot to talk about. So DJ Nick drove that one last night, and we had a great discussion. And I want to thank DJ Nick for driving that one. Great time talking that one. And then Ghost with the Twin Peaks podcast that do with Zan Sprouse, where we talk all things Twin Peaks and David Lynch. We just had our 100th episode. DJ Nick joined us for that one as well. Had a great discussion as we watched the European international version of the Twin Peaks pilot from 1990 that has an alternate ending with 20 minutes of additional footage. That was a great discussion. Encourage everybody to check that out as well. Drunk Cinema, which is our side gig, Zan and I, where we talk all kinds of, watch movies. We have adult beverages and have a lot of fun. Occasionally, Christine Peruski joins us for those. And it's a great time. We just finished watching Superman the movie for our 15th episode. Had a great time with that one because that's both Zan and both our favorite comic book movies of all time. So if you're a Superman fan, I encourage you to check that episode out. We had a great time with that because it's very near and dear to our hearts. And by the way, I want to give Zan Sprouse, send our best wishes as she's recovering from finally getting her gallbladder removed, which has been causing her a lot of difficulty.
Yes.
So get well soon, Zan. We miss you. And
absolutely. By the way, Charles, if you just excuse me just a minute.
Go for it.
Zan was a guest on Set Leslie Bruce.
Yes, she was.
Recently. And we had an absolutely amazing time, including the story of her parents seeing Elvis Aloha in Hawaii. So, Zan is one of my favorite people. And, yes, absolutely sending her well wishes. She is good people, as they say down here.
Yes, she is. And you can't borrow her as a co-host regularly, okay? DJ Nick and I have her all booked up. So just put that out there.
You got it.
We're sticking her.
Right.
You can have her on as a guest once in a while, but just warning you right now, we're very protective of Zan. So just put it out there.
You should be.
All right, yeah. It's she's just wonderful to talk to, and I definitely encourage anybody to reach out to Zan. Okay, guys, you were amazing. Had a lot of fun. Hope everybody did as well.
Fun. Yeah,
great discussion.
Yes.
So next time on Next Stop Everywhere, episode 241. As we begin the road toward the big episode 250. And this one, I think, we're going back to the modern era on this one, as Christine Peruski is going to be joining me to discuss The Runaway Bride, which introduced a certain Catherine Tate as Donna Noble. Mm-hmm. And if you remember that Christmas special, is the 2006 Christmas special, as I recall correctly. And we weren't quite sure what to make of Donna when we first met her. So we're going to have a lot of interesting things to talk about. And I can't wait to have Christine back on the podcast. So she's always a delight to talk to as well.
Oh, she's always a blast. And
that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun to re-see because I've had a complicated relationship with Donna.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see this again with fresh eyes. Yeah, absolutely.
So Jesse, does that mean you're joining us for that one?
Yeah. I am strapped in. I am hoping to not miss any episodes going forward.
Are you back full time now? Because this
I am.
You haven't shared this with me. This is brand new news to me.
Yes. I am. I'm planning to, as long as the listeners can put up with me. I've missed talking Doctor Who, and so I'm ready.
Dude, if they could put up with my nonsense, you're no problem whatsoever. What are you talking about?
Oh, so yeah, and I do want to say, publicly that Charles has kept this ship sailing and going forward with a lot of joy,
right into the
and
iceberg.
love in his heart.
I'm just kidding.
And he and I really appreciate he was, as we talked about when he and Lori, Lori, Charles, and I all talked, that I just needed a break, and Charles was the first one to say, go take care of it, recharge your batteries. I understand. And
I wasn't trying to kick you out, honest, I swear.
I know you weren't. No. In fact, I know.
I wanted you to focus on getting better. That's what I wanted.
Yes.
Like, you're recovering from surgery. Do that.
Yeah. And so it is really good to be back. And, and I was just telling Linda, I said, I miss talking Doctor Who and I miss talking to Charles. And she's like, well, go for it. And I was like, well, I'm going to. So, so I'm back for now, and it's going to be fun. And I cannot wait to see what's going to happen during the end of the Chibnall era, and who's next.
I'm sure we're gonna have some big news to report here, in the coming months. So stay tuned, everybody.
Yeah. I know it's not going to happen, but I love the idea that J. Michael Straczynski raised his hand and is reaching out to BBC to say, they're not going to hire American, but oh my goodness,
right.
The world. I'm just salivating the idea of him.
Well, one of the interesting the discussion that's going on right now is like, well, why can't an American be the showrunner of Doctor Who?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting, I know the Brits would be like, we saw what happened with the 1996 TV movie, so therefore, you should, Americans should never be in charge. Well, that was one TV movie, and for one thing, it was also back in 1996. 25 years ago, things are a little different now.
You look at Sense8, you look at Babylon 5, you look at Jeremiah. This guy's got a track record.
He does have a track record. It's not like somebody just that doesn't have a credible resume. Certainly, I mean, Chibnall, even, he had Broadchurch, and he worked on Torchwood. But so, I mean, he had a resume too, and, that was no guarantee of success. So why can't American be a showrunner of Doctor Who? Really? Why can't an American write for Doctor Who? And I want to be that American. I'm just saying.
Exactly, Charles. And the other thing, and I know we're
out
going
of pure
long,
self-interest.
But I know we're going long. But like one of the things I was thinking is, just like Jodie brought all kinds of new listeners, JMS has a fan base that maybe who've not ever seen Doctor Who, but if they're like, he's doing it, I'm there, and I think it would be. Yeah, it would be. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think if Straczynski became the showrunner, we might get to see other writers like Peter David writing Doctor Who, which would be amazing to me because I'm a huge Peter David fan. So,
you and me both. So
maybe we get Neil Gaiman back. That would be nice. So
Bill Mumy,
Bill Mumy, and maybe Straczynski writing his own scripts. What a wacky idea, right?
Ooh, that's great.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a nice fanboy wishing, I guess, on our parts. But John, thank you so much for being a part of this episode. I know we run long, but we.
Oh, that's fine.
It's kind of like a reunion here with Jesse and I. We get carried away a little bit. But
no, it's been fantastic.
So I hope you had a good time. Great.
I have.
All right.
And BritBox now is streaming Blake 7.
Ooh.
So you can finally get a chance to watch Blake 7.
I've never seen Blake 7.
I've never seen Blake 7 either, to be honest with you.
Yeah, created by Terry Nation.
Yep. It's Dalek creator Terry Nation. Yeah, that's right.
Another idea for a Patreon episode.
There you go.
I had to pop that in there.
No, I'm glad. That's interesting.
I would be really interested, like if Jesse ropes in John for a Blake 7 podcast, I would listen to that in a heartbeat.
There you go.
I'm just putting that out there.
Thank you, Charles.
All right. Okay, so everybody, thanks again for listening. Guys, thank you so much for being here and being a part of it. And come on back in 2 weeks, episode 241, The Runaway Bride with Christine Peruski, yours truly, and yes, Jesse Jackson, right here on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Goodbye, everybody.